the red cards for decision making, it's a little bit, we'll have to just kind of stretch to the idea that we are a group now trying to make a decision, right? And the decision I want us to think about today is imagining that we are being brought in to do some professional development, and the group that we're working with, the like point of contact there is like, do you think we should make this mandatory for everybody? So that's going to be our question. Do we think that people should be required to go to our professional development workshop? And I want us to do this through some inside and outside thinking. So the idea with inside and outside thinking is that we're going to basically look at that question from two perspectives. And the two perspectives are from the insider's perspective, and the insider is going to be the people who are planning the workshop, like us and our point of contact, right? Like we're like, here's all the reasons we think they either should or shouldn't be mandated to do it. And then we're going to look at it from the outsider's perspective, which is going to be all the people who would be required to go, right? Like all of the employees who are actually going to either be mandated or not mandated. And we're just going to come up with two lists. So basically, what are the things, what are the things that are informing our decision as the insider team around whether we should or shouldn't? And then what are the like things that would inform the decision from that outsider's perspective around whether we should or shouldn't mandate it? So that's what we're going to do. Maybe we'll take a leaf out of Kayla's suggestion, and we'll do a quick minute paper before brainstorming all together. So I'd love you to pull out a piece of paper, something you can write on. John, I know you have to head out soon, so if you actually want to send me yours, or if you need to head out now, that's totally fine. See you at the next one, hopefully. Bye. So what I'd love you to do, pull out a piece of paper, something to write on, or open up a Word document. Don't have to go find paper if it's not near you. And just think about the idea of what are the things that are informing your decision around whether to make something mandated or not. And from the group that's planning the workshop versus the group that would be attending the workshop's perspective. So I'll just give you a minute or two to write on that, and then we'll do some out loud brainstorming. Okay, so I'm going to capture this list on the mural we were just on. You don't need to write on it. I'm just going to do it there, just so I have everything in one place. And this is what I'll do. I'll just spotlight myself so you can all see this. And we'll start by thinking about the insider's perspective. So what are the things you think you're thinking about, or the point of contact is thinking about, in terms of making this decision around mandatoriness? What are some thoughts y'all have? And you can just shout them out. Just shout them out.
How effective the training would be for their specific role.
Okay, so like if people have different roles, like would it be effective for everyone versus just effective for a few?
Right.
Okay.
Have we mandated in the past?
Nice. Mandated in the past. Okay. What else?
Knowing the number of participants makes logistics a lot easier.
Okay. Oh, just the idea of like, if I know this is how many people are going to be there because they're mandated, man, that will just make my life easier. Okay. Knowing for sure the number of people makes it easier. Yeah.
Definitely heart that one. I'm working on a training and we didn't realize that we have 1,200 people that need to take this training and we had scheduled for 5 sessions. Can't do that and not happening. So once we knew that, we could reschedule. So those
Yeah.
logistics make sense. So I've got also, how much time is it going to take? How long is this session going to last? Because that is also to me something that an outsider wants to know as well.
Okay.
How long is this mandated training going to be?
Right.
Is it 3 sessions? Is it 5 sessions? Is it 12 hours? Is it 2 hours?
Got it. Yeah. Just the idea of like, well, I might feel okay about mandating something that is like a one-off workshop, but mandating something that is going to take hours and hours is going to just really be a very different thing to mandate. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And we can start building in both columns if folks want to. So feel free to
I
just.
also would be thinking on the insider's perspective from a somewhat thinking about equity and is anyone mandated? Because if anyone's mandated, how are we just, is it anyone or everyone? All or none? Yeah, thank you.
Got it. If are only certain people mandated, or are we going to do it for everybody? Yep.
I think there's an issue of buy-in that's important. So it makes a facilitator's job a lot easier if folks are excited about being there. And then an outsider perspective is, maybe I don't want to go.
Yeah, they're overwhelmed with other duties.
Yeah.
So they.
I was
Right.
going to say that too, but buy-in's a better phrase. But like engagement, if it's mandated, then your lack of engagement for certain people could be pretty high,
Right.
which affects the entire session.
I would also add under outsiders, just simply what's in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other outsiders perspective?
I had 2 that overlap a little bit, but like, can I get this info somewhere else? Like, can I just listen to a podcast? Or I need to.
Yeah. No, that's a great one. That's such a great one.
And do I really need to know this? Because one of my insider perspective questions was, how vital is this info for operations or organizational culture, which is slightly different than how effective it would be for a specific role.
Right. You said, I heard org culture, and the other one was
Or operations.
Operations. Got it.
Yeah. Like I've been to trainings where like, this is the new way we're doing X. Well, okay, we all need to know that.
Right. You're like, oh, we're using Google, not Outlook. Cool. I would like a training on that versus, which I actually think is really interesting that you put these together, because I think they're so wildly different, you know what I mean? But still essential questions. Okay. Any other outsider perspective ones? We could also do more insiders, but I know the outsider one is like more of a stretch because we're usually the insider. But I think these are really interesting. Yeah.
Also, for the outsider, what's the time commitment?
Time commitment. Yeah. Overall.
Or if there's a cost involved. If you're talking about mandating it and then require people to pay.
Yeah, I also there's cost of how much is this going to take away from my ability to do my work? Am I going to be given more, you know what I mean? Am I going to be allowed to make up that time in other ways? And then there's also I have heard of very, terrible practices where people are mandated to go to something they're not getting paid to do. Like if you're an hourly employee and they're like, you have to go, and you're like, okay. And they're like, and we don't pay you. You're like, whoa, that's rough. No. So yeah, just those questions. Okay. All right. We probably have brainstormed enough to jump into kind of the next question, which is what takeaways do you have? Do you have any insights just by doing this process? Do you have any kind of insights or thoughts that you realize by doing this process, the insiders versus outsiders perspective? Yeah, go ahead, Ro.
That outsider's perspective is my comms plan. Like to make sure that all my communications address all of these questions I assume, and then always be open to like, do you have other questions? Like, feel free to get in touch.
Yeah, right. Where I think that's so important is just this idea of these are the things that we care about, right? Like the insider's perspective is like all of the things that are affecting our decision making, but like these are the things that people actually need to hear, right? And how different those lists can be, right? Like almost none of this is like buy-in, you know, but like to me that's such a huge factor in thinking about something as like that insider's perspective. Yeah.
I see those insider perspective questions were almost the things that we ask those stakeholders that are higher, that are saying, okay, we need you to help with this, this, and this. Those are almost the questions that we ask those stakeholders, where the outsiders perspective are the questions, as you're just saying, this is a comm plan. This is what we have to communicate to those that are taking that training. So, being that sort of in the middle there, I need to know from my stakeholders, like, okay, how essential is this?
What are there times where you can see yourself using this process, like either in a workshop or like we just did, kind of like in the lead up to a workshop? Now I'm like, oh, I should be using this with clients, but like, which is like a process outside of it. But yeah, any thoughts on like when you might use this kind of process?
Well, certainly if you have a co-facilitator.
Oh, say more.
I would appreciate doing the insider's perspective with someone else. I'm one of those people who loves to co-facilitate.
Got it.
So two heads being better than one, I would be able to get those answers in a richer way by having it with someone else.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, cool.
I think it would be helpful if you are training people who will also be training, like when you're doing that train the trainer model, right? So I work with teachers who are also going to take this back to students. So that would be interesting to walk them through, teachers being the insider, students being the outsider, or vice versa. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I can also totally see like, this is a question I've thought about before with teachers, is like, what do you think makes a great like lesson or classroom plan? And then like, what do you think your students think a great lesson is, right?
Exactly.
Because like there's gonna be overlap in those, but there's also probably things, like over here in that student perspective that we don't think about,
Right.
or we don't have like top of mind that I think can be brought back to top of mind.
Yeah,
With
exactly.
something like this. Yeah, Ro.
I'm working on related to Kayla's idea, I'm working on a project right now. It's basically a children's like coloring activity booklet. And anytime we're working on like in a group, so I'm facilitating a group that's like working on this project, and we need to think like, what are we trying to communicate as an org, but also like, what do kids and like their grown-ups want out of what's going to make this attractive to them to like want to learn about our organization. And I think anytime you're working on a piece like that is trying to communicate something, this is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'm just going to open up the floor for any general insights about this process, about inside versus outside thinking. Reflections, thoughts, questions.
This is another one that I haven't used before, so I love testing it out before I run it in front of a bunch of people. But like I said, I would find this really valuable to use with the clients that I work with, because they're often, presenting or that train the trainer model. So I'm going to try to definitely plug it in.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Kayla on that, and that we talk to all of our employees and trying to be more customer centric and thinking about everything that we do impacts our customer, everything that we do. And so having them at some point, they're supposed to talk about that in every training that they do, to this is a great one that we can say, okay, how did what we just do in our class, whatever it is, how does this impact the customer? And then that's looking at that outsider's perspective. And so that we can get some feedback. So again, I haven't used this one, but I really think it would be great for that. How does it impact the customer?
Yeah. Kieran, any thoughts or insights from you?
Yeah. So I'm approaching facilitation more from a troublemaker perspective, I guess, of finding ways to, to be like a community activist, I guess, So like this particular one here, when we're discussing, let's say, an evil water company that everybody wants to fight against in my town, what are the pros and cons? What are different ways of looking at it from not just that, they suck because of this, and that, but, what other issues are they facing that we're not recognizing that we would be remiss if we don't account for, So I think it definitely has some value along those lines.
Yeah. I think, that's a really interesting example of just like, if we have only one perspective on a group of people, right? In that case, like a predatory, water company or utilities or whatever it is, being like, okay, like what is their motivation, right? Like, okay, money, yes. What's the other things, right? Like, do they see themselves this way? What is the narrative they're writing about their service to the community? And just being able to, like do that as an exercise. I also like something I'm thinking about when I'm saying that is, I think when you allow people to say their perspective first before having to do the other person's perspective, they're like, sometimes I feel like we ask people, hey, just think from their perspective. And they're like, that's difficult. Like that is not my natural place to go. Right. And so I think like allowing let's get our perspective down. What are our priorities? What are the things that we care about? What are the things that we're motivated by? And then be like, okay, what are the things they care about? What are the things that they're motivated by? And I think doing that in the insider first, outsider second order might sometimes help that outsider perspective feel less I think sometimes people are like, but you're not recognizing what's important to me, right? Like in my example, but I really care about whether it's going to, affect buy-in, and being able to get that out, I think sometimes allows us then to put ourselves in that secondary perspective once we've done that. So that was just something I was thinking about with your example. Okay. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts for folks?
I keep coming up with the word resilience. So that's what it feels like with this exercise. It sort of gives you a chance to test how your roadmap or how your plan might land with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Stress testing. It's like the smallest amount of stress testing, for sure. Yeah, I love that. It's something too, what Kayla was saying about I'm in that train the trainer model. Something I'm just really struck by with this, with the inside versus outside thinking. And honestly, with a lot of the cards sometimes is how many ways you can use it. You're like, okay, well, we could actually do it in the workshop, right? We could actually have people make this, this is what my students care about, this is what I care about list. But then you could also do it to make the workshop, right? This is what I want my participants to learn in my workshop. This is what I want, what they want to learn, right? And then we just used it in the planning stages of in just making a workshop mandatory or not. And sometimes I just find it fun how meta and how many layers up can we use these things? And the answer is it's turtles all the way down. It's facilitator cards all the way down, because we use facilitator cards to run the business of facilitator cards. It's facilitator cards all the way down. So thank you all so much for joining the May Playground. I learned a lot from this process. Kayla, what you were saying of I don't use these cards, so it's fun to test them out. That's why I choose the cards I choose, because I never use these cards and it makes me feel inspired to use them and to go explore new ones. So thanks everybody for being such a wonderful playground to test these things out.